Welcome to Relationship Mastery, a podcast for those who want to learn how to master the art of creating happy, healthy, and loving relationships. Please join me, Adey-Jones, and my co-host, Barry Selby, each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for a lively and informative conversation on everything to do with relationships. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. How are you doing, Barry?
I'm doing well, and how about yourself?
A little sniffly. We were just saying I've got allergies. But that'll be fine. I've got my tissue here ready. So last week we were talking about how we teach others how to treat us, and the
Right.
subject of active listening came up. And I thought, we both decided that would be a great topic for
Mhm.
discussion.
Yes, indeed.
And the title is The Art of Acting Listening, Active Listening, because it is an art. It
Yeah.
really is an art. And so for those that don't, think what is active listening, it's just basically it's an approach, a disciplined approach to really hearing each other. And I say it's a disciplined approach because I think most of us really don't
No.
listen to understand the other person. We listen to gather information and then defend ourselves if there is
Oh,
a situation where there's conflict or misunderstanding.
well, I would actually say that we actually listen to respond versus listen to hear, because
Exactly.
it's like we're ready to jump back in to give our viewpoint because we want to be right, not as much defending ourselves, but often as we want to win. It's almost like we want to win the conversation in a way,
Yeah,
so we don't really spend time really appreciating what the other person's saying to us, so we can receive it.
exactly. And I was bringing up in the sense of if there was some type of a misunderstanding or something where you really
Sure.
needed to understand the other person and
Mhm.
not come from that defensive place, but to have a conversation where you're curious. I can't remember who wrote this. One of the great sort of teachers wrote something like, um, seek to understand before being understood, meaning going into a conversation with curiosity, with wanting to learn about the other person, rather than just, hey, I'm here, know me, this is what I think, this is what what makes. So it really is, an opportunity to really just sort of like zip it up a little, sit on your hands, and really pay attention. But there are some tools on how to do it. The in, I say the right way, but in a better way than just sort of muddling through and trying to hear each other. And
Right.
part of the active listening is, as I said, no interrupting. You know, maintaining eye contact. Resist the urge to respond, really let the person say everything they have to say first without jumping in and interrupting. Um, and then this is the art is to then perception check, as we said, and to reflect back to that person. This is what I heard you say. Is
Mhm.
this Am I correct? And you can summarize, you don't have to sort of verbatim tell them exactly everything. It does help actually if you have a really good memory and you can,
Yeah.
you know,
Of
respond with using the words that they used. Um, it's very effective. But anyway, so what are your experience of active
course.
listening?
Well, when we talk about active listening, I reflect on what we learned at USM, which is called heart-centered listening, because I love the metaphor of that, the symbology of attempting to listen from your heart than from your head.
Mm,
Because growing up the way I did and being a very mentally, active person, I'd always process things mentally. That's the way most people are, I think, in a lot of ways. So the idea of like to stop the mental chatter going on and sort of drop into the heart level and just be present, so I can actually hear what the person's saying. Because the challenge is I wouldn't necessarily hear them because I was so busy listening to my own thoughts, not listening to them, which is another problem we face.
yeah,
They really move into a new place of being receptive, because that's the thing about active listening. It's about being receptive enough to actually receive the words, the communication from the other person. And the thing about it, when you do have active listening, is you listen to more than just the words. You actually listen or receive the person's expression, the person's feeling tone, the person's energy. so that what they're saying is a whole picture. It's not just the words alone, because the challenge also is that we don't necessarily um, communicate our full message when the words we say either. So it's like, how do you receive the whole person? In I know something to about in what we understand things like how important body language and facial expression are, because the words we say are something like 7% of our communication. So it's more than just listening. It's more about being receptive to really, like, what is this person communicating to me that I can feel, that I can experience, so I can be responsive to that. And so what you said exactly is to feed back what we understood. The challenge can be sometimes is when we feed back what we perceive the other person is giving us, they might not be aware of what they've been communicating to us. So they may be surprised by what we tell them, because they go, damn, I was doing that, or I didn't even know I was doing that. So what they think they were telling us was just only part of the picture. So this whole conversation of active listening, as I'm realizing as I'm saying it, is a much bigger piece than just the words that are being communicated.
Yeah. Well, and to go back to that for a second, that's why it's so important to be sitting opposite each other, to be have the eye contact, not be
Mhm.
distracted, not be, cooking dinner or on your phone or something as you're trying
Right.
to have a conversation. Um, it's very, very important because, as you said, you pick up on these subtleties. And again, this is not you're not making stuff up, but you are recognizing the posture. How is somebody feeling like guarded? Do they have their arms folded? Are their legs folded? Are they on that sort of defensive? Or are they open? Is their heart open, as you said, to really wanting to be understood and heard? And the other thing, I'm sorry, I might sneeze in a minute here with my allergies. Um, the other thing it's again very important not to interpret what somebody else is saying.
Yeah.
As much as we say that, yes, and a huge, I think it's even, I mean, I've learned something like 96% of our communication is through nonverbal, in how our body language, how we stand, the
Mhm.
tone in which we deliver our words. There's so many other things going on. But again, not to is the other part of active listening is the perception checking, is the clarifying questions. It's the um, seek to understand it a little deeper. Like if somebody says something and you don't know what they mean, it's okay to say, "Can you say that in another way? I'm having a hard time understanding what you meant by that. Is there a different way you can put it that can help me understand?" So these are all things that we're attempting to communicate on the most profound level possible, to
Right.
really deeply connect and understand our partners. And often, the other thing is, the more that we can listen and not interrupt, the deeper the person will often go.
Yeah.
If they're just left to sort of, almost like stream of consciousness,
Mhm.
just, to say, tell me more. That I never, I didn't know this about you, or I didn't know you were feeling this way. I want to know more. And
Right.
so much more will come out when the person feels that they are being received.
Absolutely. Yeah. The thing about it is really how accommodating or how much space can we create for the person who's sharing to us. I remember there's a meme I saw years ago. It was about how silent and listen are the same letters, just rearranged. So it's a reminder that when we're listening, not so much that we don't say anything, but what can we do to still our mind, to be silent in our head, so we can actually be open enough to receive everything they're doing. Like we said earlier, how you receive the whole communication, not just the words they're saying. And so there's an opportunity to practice being really present with somebody else, because frankly, it's one of the biggest gifts we can give anybody is to be fully present with them. Not necessarily to give them feedback or to give them answers or try and figure them out, but to be present with them so they can feel received and listened to and heard. And for some people, in fact, I've seen it happen before in times too, when you are that receptive a listener and holding the space for that person who's sharing, if they're in upset or discord or uncertainty, they may end up resolving their own issue themselves without needing anything from us. It's just that we created the space for them, the safety for them to feel whole themselves.
Yeah. As you're saying that, and it's so true. I'm thinking of, well, I was in a a training in South America with one of my teachers, and he'd I can't remember the word that he used. It wasn't active listening. It was something like that. But basically, we had to sit opposite another person and just let them talk for
Mm.
45 minutes, an hour, and not say a word. No perception checking, no clarifying questions, just to really, really be present to them as they shared a struggle they were having. And it was challenging because most of us that were there were coaches, and so we do tend to sort of well, we certainly let our clients discover their own solutions, and well, certainly I do anyway. I'm not a coach that tells people what to do, but it was incredible to see the journey that somebody could go on internally in with their own emotional landscape when they were,
Mhm.
like you just said, given the time to to meander through that with no
Right.
interruption, but just being witnessed. And I mean, I remember we all came out of it. We had to do it with each other, going, "Wow, that was unbelievable." Just sort of, sitting there in our own heads mulling over things. It was to speak it out loud and to be heard and received, but not interrupted, and
Right.
allowed to find our own solutions. So very, very powerful. Um, and the other thing I wanted to mention is, and the reason this sort of came up for me, the subject, was I was talking to somebody um, who whose partner felt that she nagged, and
Mm.
and And so this is where they brought this up, was like, okay, her thing was, well, I don't feel that you've heard me. So I repeat myself sometimes. And so they really did this active listening, and it was incredible because she really did feel heard. And so she did not want to repeat herself. And the relationship improved greatly because he had started to tune her out. And so it was this self perpetuating problem of, he felt that she was nagging and she was repeating herself because it wasn't landing. And then he
Right.
was shifting down to the nagging. And then, it was just to hell in the handbasket, as they say, the communication. But yeah, so definitely this active listening brings you closer. It's wonderful for the relationship on many levels, the intimacy, and I'm talking about the emotional intimacy when you really, really do see into me, as they say.
Absolutely. Yeah, in fact, that vulnerability that happens when you basically let down the walls, and that's the thing about it. It's not about being defensive, because the things when you are being a receptive listener, you're not. Because firstly, you're not taking it personally. That's the best strength as well. Being impersonal, so to speak. We can be holding the space for somebody to let them express and share their thoughts, especially when you know, or so to say, when you hold the space to know that what they're sharing is about them anyway. It's not about us.
Mm,
So we don't feel attached to results, or again, like we had fix it or answer questions or dialogue or any that sort of thing. We can simply be present. That they create such a safe. Like I said earlier, it was like, but basically, when you're holding safety for them, they can feel received and held. Healing can happen, but also when you hold the space, you can feel whole as well, because there's such a gift you can have when you're being vulnerable enough to let somebody talk for 45 minutes. In the case you were talking about in that workshop, but have that space to do that sort of talking. There's a part of us that starts to really learn that we don't have to keep making our presence known.
mhm,
Like we have to defend ourselves or say something to be validated or to notice things. It's like, I know for a lot of us, our ego is so driven to be like, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me, sort of thing. And when you're holding space, you're doing exactly the opposite. You're almost being invisible. In sense, you're not trying to be noticed. You want to be so transparent that they can just share and share. And so, yeah, the intimacy and the vulnerability are magical gifts. I mean, in healthy relationships, having this sort of communication between the partners is a gift that most people don't have a clue about.
mhm. Absolutely. And it's not just in your intimate relationships. It's, certainly as a mother, I can see it with my children. And we've always had a thing in my family where I do say, if they're perturbed about something, do you are you looking for guidance or advice, or you just want to, be, let off steam? And they're very clear about what it is they want, and I
Right.
respect. And there are times when things are being said, and that, we're, as a mother, I'm thinking, oh, be careful or whatever. Um, but you don't. You just don't say anything. It's not your place. Your
Right.
place is to be there. So, because that's the thing is, I've noticed as well with that, if you start saying to somebody, well, you shouldn't talk to your boss like that, or if you do this and what that, they just ramp up. They don't feel understood or seen or heard, so they get more attached to those feelings they're having, as opposed to, if you are just listening, you, they end up hearing themselves, and they come to that own conclusion on
Yeah.
their own, that,
Right.
I'm letting off steam right now because it's a safe space to do that. But, maybe I don't go back into work on Monday and tell my boss that. But
Yeah.
again, it's that helpful thing. It's like you were saying, and I do think this is probably challenging for men too, especially. And there's me making generalizations. Normally, I'm like, no, we're all the same. I think culturally, men have been told that they're there to help and problem solve, and they offer advice sometimes when it's not wanted, because it's
Yeah.
hard for them to sit and watch somebody in pain.
It's true. And it is the challenge because of being, we think of ourselves being caring human beings. So of course, if we see somebody who's suffering, we want to fix them in quotes because we don't necessarily see them in that moment as being whole and complete because they're wounded emotionally, physically, whatever it is. And so our mission is to be the savior and to come, be the knight in shining armor, whatever it is, to make sure they're okay. And recognizing the fact is that, and this is one of the gifts of this work, is when we know that our clients or our people we're talking to have all the things they need to be okay. The way through it, though, is for us to be space holders, so to speak, holding that space for them and being compassionate so that we can let them vent, share, express, cry, whatever it is, so they can actually feel safe enough to be whole again. So
Mhm.
the gift to give somebody by being, and this is why it's so interesting because looking at active listening is such an active thing. It's not just listening silently. There's an activity to it, which is that space holding, that is that energetic, that is almost like a warm blanket in a way. It can be such a safe, nurturing space for the person who's sharing.
Yeah, yeah. As we're talking, I'm thinking, because I still work at the donation center, or volunteer, I should
Mhm.
say that, and I really see it there a lot. You see people coming in that are going through different types of trauma. I mean, some people have lost their houses completely. Some people have lost multiple houses. And there was a woman in there yesterday that she, their families, like, they live close together, and like three houses burnt down: her mother's house, her house, and her sister's house. And it's
Mhm.
like family homes. And um, but it's that delicate balance of, because I see sometimes with maybe some of the other volunteers that aren't coaches or haven't been given the training we have, which is like, to try and sort of rush that person through their process. And again,
Mhm.
it's done in a wonderful. They're trying to help them, but it sort of shuts down the other person, and then the other person feels guilty for having these feelings and emotions, and it's like, it's so interesting to witness, somebody being overly helpful in shutting the other person down when they're expressing their grief and their pain and their upset and their sorrow. It's
Yeah.
it's a valid experience they need to go through,
Mhm.
and and often we will get to, besides the material, items we're able to give people. People will leave and they'll just say, thank you for, listening. Thank you for allowing us to just be wherever we're at, and for supporting that, which is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is that it's interesting because everyone wants to do better. It seems like, or at least most people want to do better, especially when they're volunteering, making a difference. But sometimes they don't realize the negative impact they have when they don't realize how to bring their whole capacity with them, how to be that way of serving. So absolutely right. Yeah, to be able to serve as a volunteer in a place of needing this, or even working if you're working with kids or anything like that as well, is the bigger we can be in holding space, the more that the safety is created. Again, like the warm blankets I mentioned earlier, is that feeling of having such a capacity that the other person can feel okay to be whatever they want to be and not be judged about it. And so, yeah, I mean, that's the one of the challenges when you're dealing with like what you're working with is having people that don't know how to be in the right space with people who are coming through in such sorrow and sadness and loss and upset. And so sounds like we want to have workshops for volunteers so we show them how to be more able to be more capacious, more spacious, so that people are coming in feel held, received, and honored for where they are. Because the other part is also, and this is one of the things I know for myself, and this is for all the men listening in relationship, is that we have this desire to fix everything. And when I want, and just to bring it into the romantic piece for a second, when we're with a woman, our partner, who doesn't need necessarily to be fixed, she wants to be heard. So this conversation, by the way, if you haven't been listening to the beginning, especially for the men listening, you can improve your relationship skills by shutting up and listening and trying to fix her. Because there's a tendency, because we want to solve anything, because we think we want to make her feel better. But the truth is, the way she feels better is by letting it all out and not carrying it around with her. So the more we just don't do anything but hold space, and I don't mean don't do anything, be present, be caring, be space holding, is such a gift to give. So I know shifted gives from the shelter to from helping the people who had lost their property to a relationship, but this key transcends all of this stuff. Is what I'm trying to say. Ultimately, it's like we can use this skill everywhere.
Absolutely, absolutely everywhere. And the other thing is that some people find it hard to share. I'm
Mm.
thinking of my partner. He spends an awful lot of time up here. He's really he does a lot of um, wanting to resolve things internally before sharing it. And
He's not unusual.
say that again.
He's not unusual for men.
Is that it? Maybe it's unusual for me. I'm used to more sort of I don't know different type of energy around that.
Right.
So sometimes I want the conversation. I want to hear the process. I don't want to just hear the conclusion. You know what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
I want to hear it. I want to hear what he's feeling and what the conflict might be and what he's getting from it because it does, it leads to intimacy again. It's like you see
Right.
everything about somebody. You see.
How- However, though, just to defend him for a moment, as a male point of view,
Yeah.
is that we sometimes feel like if we do that, we're being weak. Somehow we need to be like we need to have it together. As part of it wants to be, presented as the best that we can be in partnership. So of course we want to make sure our lady thinks we're doing great. And so if we show that level of vulnerability, we don't always know that she can trust us anymore. Because a part of a relationship is that trust issue. And having trustability that she can trust him means that we have to feel like we're rock solid. So we never show any weakness or anything. So the process can look like for us as a sign of weakness. They don't want to share with their partners. We want to show them the finished result where everything's polished, perfect, and done.
Yeah.
So that may be the way it's thinking. I'm just saying that's just an option.
No, it's not. It wasn't even a criticism. It was an observation of how much I seek to you know that I want to hear it all. I want to
Right.
hear
Yeah.
the all the struggle and everything. That it's not that it's a safe thing to share and that it's but it just again it's the intimacy. It's the I mean whereas for me it's like I'll explain and expose every little up and wart and
Yep.
whatever. I mean I'm just like it's all here. Look at it. But yeah, it's definitely, as I said, it's an art. It's an art to let the other person know that they are safe to
Hmm.
share it and that you're interested and that it brings you closer and there are less misunderstandings. Um, so it's a, and again, what I was going to say too is a little another part of the art. If you do know that you're going to talk about, say, a subject that you've had issues around, That's what I was saying with my friend. It was around an issue, and every time they tried to talk about it, it got heated and emotional, and ended up with no communication whatsoever. A lot of hurt feelings, but it's an issue that has to be discussed.
Right.
So this is this we use this technique when you can set a time for it, maybe not in a heated moment while emotions are high. Say, let's revisit this situation tomorrow and let's discuss it with cool heads after a good night's sleep, and prepare yourself mentally. Have maybe do some deep breathing, sort of relax yourself, your nervous system, so that you're not sort of going to get triggered. That's the other thing, is to really, we always talk about this, about being aware of your triggers. And
Hmm.
said earlier too, which is great, it's don't take it personally. The person is revealing things about them, their thought process, what's going on for them. It's not an attack on you. And
Yeah.
hopefully that you will both be using the sort of, I words, not the you. You know,
Hmm.
I feel this when this situation occurs. So really just own that it's what you're sharing is your experience. This is not an opportunity to ask the other person to shut up while you basically
Right.
whack them around the head with a baseball bat and tell them everything they're doing wrong. I mean, the respect has to go both ways. If
Hmm.
somebody is really actively listening, then be respectful with your language and take ownership for whatever it is you're feeling, but be truthful
Yeah.
where you are.
Absolutely. This is such a. I mean, the bottom line is very simple. This skill, this way of being, this way of listening, is huge. And if you're listening to this and you're watching this and you practice this skill for a week, it'll change your life. It's such a gift to give to your everybody around you, partners, children, family members, strangers even. You might discover that your connection to the world is thriving. I mean, just to be listening to the person on the register at the grocery store or somebody you pass in the street, not just to come up and talk to them, but just if you happen to be in conversation, dialogue with somebody and just listen, you can change somebody's life. And not by saying a word, frankly. That's one of these wonderful gifts about active listening. It's such a wonderful service to somebody else.
Mm. Well,
Yeah.
and to yourself too, though,
I was gonna say that too, yeah.
because really, I mean, if you are, if you are really listening, I mean, you just, there's the richness there. What you can receive, what you can learn about another person is huge, rather than just
Yeah.
listening to your own voice, telling your own stories.
Again and again like a loop. So, yeah, nice to, like, let something else in instead for a change.
Well, that's a pretty, we've covered most of, and again, as I said, if you're with a partner that is hesitant to share openly, it it really is your responsibility to make it an incredibly safe space and
Mhm.
prepare them and say, I want to hear the truth of what's going on inside you. I promise I will use every ounce of my energy to not become emotional or reactive if I hear something that I perceive as hurtful. So really encourage the other person if they are, for whatever reason, hesitant about speaking the truth.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's something that, again, it's a powerful skill that everyone can get better at.
Yeah. Yeah. All right then. Well, it's another great
Mhm.
conversation, Barry. Thank you so much.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you next week.
Yep.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.
We trust you enjoyed this episode and invite you to share this with your friends and loved ones. In fact, please subscribe to our Relationship Mastery podcast. That way you'll get each new episode fresh and shiny as soon as it is released. We'd love to hear from you as well, so go ahead and enter your questions and comments at relationshipmastery.show. Take good care. We will connect with you in our next episode of Relationship Mastery.